All right, so we are diving into animation today.
You guys have sent in a ton of articles about DreamWorks' new movie, The Wild Robot.
And whether it can take down the champ. Pixar?
Right.
Is Pixar in trouble?
Is this a new era?
For animation.
That's what we're here to unpack.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to me how early this buzz is.
We're seeing multiple sources calling The Wild Robot an Oscar frontrunner.
Okay.
And it's not even out yet.
That's unusual.
Interesting.
Definitely suggests something a little special.
This happening with this film.
Yeah, especially since Pixar is usually the one.
Well, racking up those awards.
Right.
Right. And
it's not just the accolades.
one of the articles mentioned someone crying.
During the film.
Oh, wow.
In a good way.
Of course.
But apparently, The Wild Robot goes way beyond your typical robot flick.
It does seem like more than just cool gadgets and explosions.
The articles highlight themes of family.
Community finding purpose.
In unexpected places.
Yeah.
Things that I think resonate deeply.
No matter your age.
This whole robot parent thing is fascinating to me.
We've got this robot Roz.
Stranded on an island full of talking animals.
How does family even enter the equation?
Well, it seems like Roz stumbles into this very unique parenting role.
Caring for an orphaned gosling.
Oh, wow.
And so this journey of raising a child,
even one of a different species,
really forces her to confront
these very human emotions.
And that takes us right back to
those themes of community and purpose.
She's finding her place in this unconventional family.
In a world she wasn't built for.
Kind of reminds me a bit of Lilo and Stitch.
That whole Ohana means family vibe.
No. That's a great comparison.
And it's not a coincidence.
Chris Sanders, the director of The Wild Robot,
also directed Lilo and Stitch.
Okay.
And How to Train Your Dragon.
He seems drawn to these stories of unconventional families.
Finding strength in their differences.
Like in How to Train Your Dragon?
Hiccup's bond with toothless challenges, his entire Viking community's perception of dragons.
So we're seeing a pattern here.
A recurring theme that clearly resonates with audiences.
But before we get too far into The Wild Robot,
we've got to talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Pixar.
You sent over articles chronicling their journey.
It's clear they've been top dog in the animation world for a long time.
Yeah, there's no denying Pixar's impact.
From their early days with George Lucas and Steve Jobs, they haven't just told stories.
They've created cultural moments.
You mentioned in your notes
that you loved Toy Story growing up.
That's the thing about Pixar.
They create these cultural moments.
Remember Buzz and Woody?
Oh, yeah.
Iconic.
Exactly.
And you can't forget the technical innovations, too.
Pixar was the first to fully embrace computer animation with Toy Story.
And that changed everything.
It wasn't just a stylistic choice.
It opened up a whole new world of possibilities for storytelling.
It's incredible to think about the sheer number of iconic films
that they created.
Toy Story, Finding Nemo.
The list goes on and on.
These weren't just hits.
They became woven into the fabric of our culture.
What do you think The Wild Robot has to do
to reach that level of impact?
That's the million-dollar question.
I think Pixar's success isn't just about technical prowess.
It's about their ability to tap into universal truths.
To make us feel deeply connected to characters who are on the surface very different from ourselves.
So Pixar's a titan.
No doubt.
But DreamWorks isn't exactly a slouch either.
We're talking Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon.
Huge franchises.
Absolutely.
DreamWorks has consistently delivered
high-quality animated films.
And they've proven they can compete with the best.
But their journey hasn't been without its stumbles.
Yeah, one article mentioned the recent Kung Fu Panda 4 bombing.
At the box office.
That's got to sting a little bit.
Especially with all the positive attention The Wild Robot is already getting.
Makes you wonder if this new film
could signal a changing of the guard?
It does add another layer to the conversation.
Does The Wild Robot represent a resurgence for DreamWorks?
Is this the film that finally dethrones Pixar?
These are questions on everyone's minds.
And it's not just about bragging rights, right?
This conversation about box office numbers
has me thinking about something you mentioned earlier.
This idea that a film's impact
goes beyond its financial performance.
What makes a film truly matter?
In the grand scheme of things.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about the money. And The Wild Robot actually touches on this idea in a really interesting way. Several of the articles you sent mention the film's distinctive visual style, describing it as a Miyazaki forest brought to life through the work of Claude Monet.
That's a mouthful. What exactly does that even look like?
Well, it's a very striking visual approach.
Yeah.
And it really shows how these filmmakers are trying to push the boundaries of animation. Instead of going for that super sleek, hyper-realistic CGI look, The Wild Robot embraces a more impressionistic, almost painterly aesthetic. Visible brushstrokes, soft edges, a color palette that evokes the feeling of pastels. It's about texture and atmosphere. It's stepping inside a moving painting.
And this wasn't just an arbitrary choice, right? It actually reinforces the themes of the film.
Exactly. Think about the contrast between Roz the robot,
Yeah.
who represents this manufactured technological world, and the natural world she finds herself in. The animation style highlights this dichotomy. You have the organic, almost fragile beauty of nature, juxtaposed with the sleek lines, metallic sheen of technology.
Wow, that's a really cool detail. It's almost like the animation itself becomes another character, another way for the filmmakers to tell the story without words. It's not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Oh.
And this attention to detail, this willingness to experiment, I think speaks to a larger trend we're seeing in animation. There's a movement away from formulaic storytelling and predictable visuals. We're seeing more and more filmmakers pushing boundaries, challenging audience expectations, and exploring new frontiers in animation.
And it sounds like The Wild Robot is doing just that, visually and narratively. I mean, a robot parenting story, that's not something you see every day. But before we go any further, let's bring it back to you, our listener. Why does any of this matter? Why should you care about a potential shift in the animation landscape?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think it comes down to the power of animation, to tell stories that reach across ages, cultures, even species. When a film like The Wild Robot generates this much buzz, this early on, it tells us something. It's just an appetite for something different, a hunger for stories that challenge our perceptions and broaden our understanding of what animation can be.
It's about more than just entertainment then. It's about pushing the boundaries of visual storytelling, of art itself.
Precisely. And if The Wild Robot can maintain this momentum, if it resonates with audiences on the same level as those Pixar classics, it could signal a real shift. We might see more diverse stories being told, more experimental animation styles, and a greater emphasis on artistic vision alongside box office success.
Which brings us back to our original question, is Pixar toast?
It's too early to say for sure. But I think the bigger point is, this isn't a zero-sum game. The success of one studio doesn't diminish the achievements of another.
Right. It's not about picking sides. It's about appreciating the artistry and innovation that both Pixar and DreamWorks have brought to the table. They've both given us some truly unforgettable films.
And who knows, maybe this perceived rivalry will actually spark even greater creativity. Perhaps it will push both studios to deliver even more groundbreaking films in the future.
Competition breeds innovation, as they say. But there's one more detail from these articles that I wanted to touch on. Remember how we were talking about those themes of family and community in The Wild Robot? Well, it turns out those themes aren't just limited to the screen.
You're referring to how this film has brought together a real-life community of artists, animators, and storytellers.
Exactly. It's inspiring to know that a group of passionate individuals came together, united by their love for this story to create something truly unique.
That passion always shines through in the final product and reminds us that filmmaking at its core is a collaborative art form.
And that's definitely something worth celebrating, no matter which studio comes out on top at the box office. But speaking of box office success, this whole conversation about box office numbers and studio rivalry has me thinking about something
We haven't really touched on yet.
this idea of lasting impact.
What makes a film stick with us long after we've seen it?
That's the question, right? Does a film need to be a box office smash to have a meaningful impact on our culture? Or can a film resonate deeply with audiences even if it doesn't break records?
That's interesting. Because Pixar has somehow managed to achieve both. I mean, their films are critically acclaimed. They've grossed billions worldwide. And they've become so much a part of our collective cultural lexicon. I mean, think about how often you hear Toy Story quotes
Oh, yeah.
in everyday conversation.
For sure.
So can The Wild Robot pull off that same magic trick?
It's a high bar to clear. Pixar has this knack for tapping into those universal truths, the shared human experiences that resonate across generations and cultures. Their stories stay with us because they speak to something deep within us.
And it's not just about the story itself, right? It's about the way that Pixar tells it. They've mastered this incredible blend of humor and heart and stunning visuals that just capture the imagination.
Exactly. That's what makes those films so enduring. They work on multiple levels. They can entertain a child just as easily as they can move an adult to tears.
So the big question is, can The Wild Robot achieve that same level of emotional depth and resonance? Can it break through the noise and become more than just a flash in the pan?
Only time will tell. But the early buzz, the unique visual style, the heartfelt themes, I think they all point to the potential for something truly special.
You know, it's funny. We started this whole conversation wondering if Pixar was in trouble, if this new film from DreamWorks spelled doom for the reigning champ. But I think what we've discovered is that there's room for everyone at the table.
Absolutely. The animation landscape is vast and varied. There's space for Pixar's signature blend of heart and humor, and there's space for DreamWorks to explore new frontiers with films like The Wild Robot.
And ultimately, it's the audience who benefits from this diversity, from this constant push for innovation and creativity.
That's a great point. The more stories we tell, the more perspectives that we explore, the richer and more vibrant I think the world of animation becomes.
Well said. And you know, that's what I find so exciting about this moment in animation, this willingness to experiment, to push boundaries, to challenge our expectations. Who knows what incredible stories we'll be treated to in the years to come.
I couldn't agree more. It's a really exciting time to be an animation fan.
And to you, our listener, we'll leave you with this. As you delve into the world of the Wild Robot, as you experience its heartwarming story and stunning visuals, think about the films that have left a lasting impression on you. What is it about those stories, those characters, that has resonated so deeply within you? What makes a film linger in your mind long after the credits have rolled? Because ultimately, those are the films that matter, the films that shape our perspectives and stay with us for a lifetime. So keep exploring, keep discovering, and let the power of animation transport you to new and unforgettable worlds.